After taking a commanding victory in the thriller that was the Austrian Grand Prix, Valtteri Bottas couldn't have asked for a better start to the season. Throughout the entire weekend, he was as relaxed as ever, staying within a tenth or two of Hamilton in each of the practice sessions, so as not to show his hand. But when it really mattered most, he delivered under pressure. Now, of course, the ending to qualifying wasn't as exciting as we expected, but nevertheless, Valtteri still did a great job in setting a solid banker lap, which inevitably secured his pole position. We saw more of the same from him in the race as well. Brilliant race pace, but also the cool, calm and collected nature that enabled him to hold his position after all the safety car restarts. And before any of you say, this is just another race review, trust me, I will spare you all of that. In fact, this video will provide a deep insight into the key factors that will determine whether Valtteri Bottas will win the 2020 Formula 1 World Championship. But before we dive into it, guys, if you enjoy my content, then don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on so you never miss another upload. Just recently we passed 600 subscribers, which is absolutely amazing, and I'm truly grateful to all of you who support me. Shout out to you guys. I will keep pumping out the content for you all to show my appreciation for all your support. But without further ado, let's get into it. First off, I want to look at Valtteri's progression from 2017 up to this point, so we can come to a few initial conclusions. So here's a graph showing the position Bottas finished in each race in 2017. Now, you will notice the large spike in the chart in the Spanish Grand Prix because it represents a race where Bottas retired. Now, if we add Hamilton's results to the graph, we can see exactly how Bottas performed relative to him in 2017. Whenever Bottas's line goes below Hamilton's, it means over that period of time, he performed better. As you can see, he had a couple of races where he outperformed Lewis, for example, in Russia, and then he had a streak spanning 2 races in Austria and Azerbaijan, where he also beat his teammate. Now, as we know, these tracks have been traditionally very poor for Hamilton and very strong for Bottas, therefore it is to be expected that he will outperform Lewis at these races. But one thing you've probably noticed is that Hamilton went on a streak from Belgium all the way till the US Grand Prix where Bottas didn't beat him at all. And the conclusion we can draw from this is that the races that come after the usual summer break are very strong for Lewis, which makes it incredibly difficult for Valtteri to beat him. Essentially, this was where the 2017 championship was truly won. Now, of course, this was Valtteri's first season in Mercedes, so it is to be expected that he will not be on the same level as Hamilton. Nevertheless, he finished the season on a high by beating Hamilton in the last 3 races of the season. So, what can we draw from this that will help us determine what Bottas needs to beat Hamilton in 2020? Well, one glaring aspect of Hamilton's game that proves to work time and time again is his consistency over the course of the season. You will hear this mentioned a lot from Hamilton himself, Sky Sports, and even Bottas has mentioned it a lot recently. All it takes is one streak of great performances from Hamilton and average performances from Bottas, and the championship swings heavily in favour of the Brit. The theme of consistency will become common when I come to analyse the 2018 and 2019 seasons. Now, even though this graph does a great job at showing us how Bottas performed relative to Hamilton and provides a very holistic view, it doesn't really tell us the full story in each of the individual races. For example, in the Spanish Grand Prix where Bottas retired, it was down to a mechanical issue and not by his own doing. It was also one example of a race where he was used as a support driver to Hamilton to help him in his championship campaign against Vettel rather than mount a challenge of his own. And this brings us to our second factor that Bottas needs to implement if he's going to win the championship this year. He needs to be able to keep up with Hamilton, especially in the races where the Mercedes is not as quick. For example, in the Spanish Grand Prix where Ferrari had the faster car, Hamilton managed to keep pace with Vettel all race long, something that Valtteri failed to do. You can only credit Lewis for this because of his raw speed and ability to extract more out of the car's potential compared to most drivers. But if Valtteri falls too far behind in a race, Mercedes will only use him as a strategic factor other than a competitor. So now let's take a look at Valtteri's performance relative to Hamilton in 2018. His performance in the Australian Grand Prix was compromised by his crash in qualifying, but he did have a much stronger performance in China and Bahrain, and in Baku, well, He did finish higher than Lewis in Canada, but both cars weren't really performing to their potential. But after the engine upgrade in France, Valtteri had a strong qualifying session and joined Lewis on the front row. That is until his race got completely wrecked by Sebastian Vettel. So his start of the 2018 season wasn't all too bad, but after both Mercedes retired at the Austrian Grand Prix, he didn't beat Lewis in a single race from that point onwards. Now, of course, there was the infamous incident in Russia,
Valtteri, it's James,
where he should have taken the victory after dominating all weekend, but nevertheless, he was still dominated by Hamilton in all the other races. Something that I didn't expect, considering how well he performed against Lewis in his debut season with Mercedes. There are a lot of variables that could have affected Valtteri's performance in 2018, but we won't get into that today. But what we do learn from this season is that consistency and race pace that I mentioned earlier played a key role in Bottas losing out in the championship again. Although his season did have a few spells of bad luck and unreliability, he was never really in contention for the championship throughout the 2018 season. Regardless of his poor performance in 2018, Valtteri came back stronger than ever in 2019. If we look at a graph for his performance in 2019 against Hamilton, we can see a lot more overlap than in the previous seasons, which is a very good sign. And I think I know why this is. Valtteri's performance in qualifying against Hamilton at certain race weekends in 2019 improved massively from 2018 and 2017. Even though his season record against Hamilton was 7-14, he still showed that he's very much a force to be reckoned with over a single lap. This brings us to our third factor, which is qualifying. Valtteri needs to step up his game even further if he is to overhaul Hamilton's title winning streak. Even though qualifying doesn't guarantee the race win, it still puts him in the best possible position to get to turn 1 first, which is ultimately where the races are won or lost. The driver ahead gets preferential treatment on strategy and is able to control the race from the front. But once again, there's a significant element to Hamilton's racecraft that doesn't show up on a chart, which is his ability to manage the wear on his tyres. Lewis has become a magician at preserving the life of his rubber, whilst also matching or even bettering the race pace of other drivers around him. If Valtteri can find a way to do the same, it would elevate his racecraft to a whole new level, and crucially, bring him on par with Hamilton during a race. So race pace, tyre preservation, and qualifying are all racing-related factors that will be crucial in helping Bottas beat Hamilton this season. But as for consistency, I think this is related to Valtteri's mindset other than his racing. Recently, I've been hearing a lot of people say that Valtteri Bottas' start to the season is very reminiscent of a certain Nico Rosberg, and to be fair, there are a lot of similarities. For example, both drivers in the lead up to the 2016 and 2020 seasons respectively had 3 years experiencing what it feels like to be the teammate of the formidable driver that is Lewis Hamilton. There's also the way that Valtteri is approaching the 2020 season, which strongly resembles the way in which Rosberg attacked the 2016 season. In order to beat Hamilton, Rosberg had to sacrifice everything and he more or less completely changed his lifestyle. Hardly any family time and solely focusing on ways to get better and maximizing his performance against his rival. From listening to interviews and podcasts that Valtteri has been on, it's evident that he's been working on his mental strength to ensure that this season he's more prepared than ever to mount a strong challenge to the reigning world champion. This is what I think his consistency will depend on, how well he copes with the mental stress and pressure of being Lewis Hamilton's teammates. Of course, the relationship between Hamilton and Rosberg was a lot more toxic than Bottas and Hamilton, but the fact that Hamilton almost never makes mistakes can really put a lot of pressure on his teammates to do the same, and if Valtteri can maintain his calm demeanour but at the same time bring the best out of himself at any given race weekend, he can accomplish his dream of becoming an F1 world champion. Having analysed everything to the best of my ability and sharing my thoughts on how I think Valtteri can win this year, it is very important to remember who he is trying to defeat. Lewis Hamilton is one of the greatest drivers to ever step in a Formula 1 car, and beating him is by no means a simple feat. He always finds a way to come back from a championship deficit, and if Valtteri is going to go for it this year, he needs to be aware of that. But if he does it, it will go down as one of the best single season performances of all time. I hope you all enjoyed. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you're new to get the latest F1 stories in the future. Also, please comment how you think Valtteri can win the championship this year in the comment section below. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.